Welcome to the Unapologetic Woman Podcast. I'm your host, Elle Nagy, and today we have the pleasure of an unscripted conversation with the remarkable Natacha Guyot. A nerdy French expat, storyteller, and content coach, Natacha is here to share her wisdom on embracing differences, kindness, and authenticity. Together, we explore the importance of living unapologetically, cherishing personal experiences, and respecting individual preferences in a world that celebrates diversity. Stay tuned for a thought-provoking discussion that invites us all to live our legacies, unleashed, unlimited, and unapologetic. Welcome, Natacha. So delighted to have you on the podcast today. We had the privilege of having one conversation, and you were just one of those delightful women that I get to meet. And then I kind of go, I wish everybody could meet her, because I think that we have lost out on the richness of people, everyday people living everyday lives, and the depth of what I get to experience when I meet women like you. And I know that I made the comment that you're unboxable. You were such a delightful bag of contradictions, which was just
you're welcome.
Yummy for me. So I'm really happy that I get to bring you onto the podcast and allow other people to have this experience of you as well. So thank you for saying yes to this.
Thanks you for offering. I loved our conversation, and just that unboxable thing. I'm reusing that now because it's just like, oh, I love that. And as I always joke, I cannot be in a box. I have 3 cats. They steal them.
Yes, and that's the least of our concerns when it comes to cats. So for our visual listeners today, visual audience today, we will see some cats making an appearance. The first one already has, which is just so cool. The black shadow that comes and goes. It's just so cool.
It's the floof. The floof likes the attention.
The floof likes the attention. Don't we all like the attention until we don't like the attention? Isn't that just one of those beautiful dichotomies in this life experience of how we get to love things until we don't love them?
Oh, this is so true. It's like we love things, but also like under our preferences, under how we want it to go. So I like that you say that, because there's this dichotomy as well, almost dissonance between, I want it to go with the flow and see where this goes, but at the same time, I'd like that this way. Please, between 2:30 p.m. and 2:45 p.m. on a Friday under a full moon in Aries. Okay, we good, but I'll go with the flow.
What? And I love this conversation, because for the longest time, I used to make that wrong about myself. People will always say, you're so full of it, you're full of nonsense, you just want things your way. And there was a shaming around that. And then I would think, I really should be more grateful for what life gives me and appreciate it more. And then one day I had the understanding that, no, we are all here to live life, to understand our personal preferences of life. And we get to have our personal preferences and allow others to have theirs. We don't all have to live in the same colored worlds and all learn to appreciate green because green is the color of the moment. Like, no, you get to like purple, or you get to like black, or you get to like black today and then tomorrow go, okay, now I want to try some pink. Like, why do you think it's so hard for us, especially as women, I've come to observe, to give ourselves permission to like what we like?
Oh, I absolutely love that. And I'm just like, yes, I'm just trying not too hard, because as we established before we started recording, my earbuds brand new are probably going to fall off. So no, but I mentally vigorously nodded at what you just said. I think that this idea of permission and giving ourselves permission is such a powerful learning, which goes with unlearning, having to wait or ask for permission from others, including with all the socio-cultural and whatever norms that are also kind of hitting women more, I would say, in how, oh, you're supposed to, there are expectations for all genders, but it's true that as women, it's also this idea of boxing and this idea of be grateful and be nice, this idea of niceness versus kindness. And a friend of mine recently, who is a therapist, talked about that, and I loved it because he was like, niceness is like rigorous expectation, like limiting expectations, where kindness comes from the heart, and we should be more kind rather than being nice. And also this idea of niceness that oftentimes, systems, the powers that be, whatever they are, just like, oh, you just need to be nice. Please dim your light. Please just do things a certain way and don't rock the boat. Well, I want to rock the damn boat and I want to go for a swim. So what?
Yes. And kindness doesn't always look kind. Kindness, for me, I'll speak for myself. Kindness means that I am real with you. Kindness for me is that I am unfiltered with you. So the kindest thing that I believe that I can do is to be real with people. How they receive that, how they experience that, that's up to them. I don't believe it's kind to be nice to people so that they will like me, so that they will like what I say. I don't think that's kind. I think that that's bullshit. And at the end of the day, we also have this conditioned picture in our minds of what does it look like to be a kind woman, to be a loving woman? And a lot of that is untruth. A lot of that is the whole smothering perception, or we treat everybody softly with cotton wool. Sometimes kindness is a kick up the ass, and I receive them and I give them. So how do you distinguish between kindness and likeness or niceness?
I think there is a bit also like where I agree that being real with somebody is like one true form of kindness, but I would also think that there is the whole discussion about intent versus impact. And I'm especially grateful from one of my closest friends who's a disability activist and has really taught me a lot when she's just like talking about marginalized group, especially when we may be, we don't intend something badly, but we also need to look at our impact. And if we messed up in the impact, if we use derogatory language, for example, or something, then no matter what our intent was, the impact was what we need to look at. So I think there's this slight distinction when we talk about realness of how we express it. And I think, like, as you say, a kick in the ass can totally be delivered when it's the kindest thing to do. And I've received a few, but there's also like how you approach it, how you formulate it, in also the language, body, or verbal language we use. So I think that's a slight distinction I would put there. And like you say, like likeness, like I don't like the whole, be nice, be a good girl, whatever that entails, because most of the time we're even going to go to extreme, like being extra dotting and smothering towards other people, or we're going to be so, and it's not mutually exclusive actually, or be so self-effacing that it's like, who are you even, like behind all of that niceness camouflage? Who are you? What do you actually want? That's a problem.
What comes to mind is when my kids were little, I taught them a process of when you need to have a conversation, you put your hand on your heart. And the hand on your heart is a reminder for you to speak from love. And so even if you are delivering a kick up the bum, you deliver it from love. And it was interesting for me to observe how their words changed, how the energy changed. So yes, I think there's a difference between a kick up the butt that's from your head and a kick up the butt that's from your heart. And for me, kindness is always delivered from your heart, not your head. Because the thing about this as well is that when we are delivering from head, my observation is a lot of the times it's because we desire to change the behavior of another because it's contradicting our preference, which really brings us back to the beginning of our conversation today. When we can start owning our personal preferences of life, there is an automatic balance of then I allow everybody else to have their personal preference as well. It doesn't mean that I don't share my personal preference. This is my stance. This is my opinion. This is how I want to experience my life creation. I get to share that, to be received or rejected by another, so that they can get to know me a little better, not so that they need to change their behavior. And I feel that we are losing that in society. We are losing the live and let live, because we always think that we have to segregate into groups and influence each other instead of going, no. What if we are just deliciously curious about other people's experience of life, because we genuinely are curious, not because we want to change our minds, and we don't have to change their minds. Live and let live. Be curious, because your experience of life is enriched when you allow yourself to experience life through another's eyes, not to change your mind, but just because, why not? Do you feel like we've lost that curiosity in other people of just kind of, I want to know why you see the world this way, why you think this way, for no other reason other than I want to get to know you better.
I like it, and because I do love that you bring up curiosity, because I think curiosity is so powerful in life, whether it's about other people or a specific topic, because curiosity can open up a lot of conversation, a lot of growth. And I do agree with the live and let live to a certain degree, because I think we need to have more conversation, be more willing to even, look at the other point of view and learn from other people, who have different experience from us. I think the one place where I would put like a caveat is if we're getting to the point when the way you want to do things is infringing on others people, rights, human rights, to be their full identity. And that's where, when we're going to have really strong racist, sexist, homophobic, denying autonomy, denying human rights, is where I think like it's where my personal limits of live and let live stands. But I also want to believe, and I've not always seen it happen, but I've seen it a few times, and sometimes I'm trying to, you try to keep faith in the human rights as well, that sometimes if you're just curious and if all the parties are curious, you may be able to, go beyond these issues of like people may come around of like, oh, indeed, if I have that preference, I cannot just say it's a personal preference, because that preference basically denies you human rights. It's not asking you to completely change, but just understand this big caveat. And if we're curious, like you said, and willing to have this sometimes hard conversation, we may be able to move forward better with still a lot of personal preference, and leave them while still be like, oh, let's not be complete asses and let's give everybody human rights.
And I wonder if we did live in a world, and I always like to play in the space of imagination, if we did live in a world where live and let live was the underlying tone of everything, I wonder, would we still have extremists? Because extremists come about because people feel threatened, and then they feel like they have to push back. And I'm always intrigued that people don't seem to get this concept that the harder you push against something, the stronger it gets, because resistance creates strength. It does so in our bodies, it does so in our minds, it does so in nature. Wherever we find this constant resistance, that which is being resisted is actually gaining strength, which is why it then pushes back so much. So I wonder if we lived in a world, La La Land in Elle's head, where the underlying philosophy experience was to live and let live, if we would even have extremist groups, if there would be an imposing of, human rights, because there would be an appreciation for diversity instead of this fear pushback, which is all it really is, right? People are scared. And so they feel like they have to push harder so that there can be a ruling party, which when we think about it is insanity, because we have, I don't even know how many billions of people on the planet at this stage. We're never all going to agree on anything, people. We're never all going to want to have the same things, people. The fact of the matter is we're all on the planet, which means that there's more than enough space for all of us on the planet. Otherwise, we wouldn't all be on the planet. which kind of makes me kind of look at the human race sometimes and go, really? What are we fighting over? What are we fighting over? The fact is we're all here, which means there's more than enough space for all of us. And the fact is that we're all unique, individual, our own preferences. We're here to identify our personal preferences. So we need the contrast and we need all of those, but it doesn't mean we must make the contrast go away, because it serves a beautiful purpose in understanding our preferences. Anyways, getting off my soapbox, because it's just one of those things where I just go, really?
I mean, I spend a lot of times on my own soapboxes, so you're fine.
Yes. I personally think that there's a lot of power in the soapbox sometimes for ourselves, because, I'm often told I'm too passionate, but why would I not be? I kind of think, well, why would I not be passionate? I'm a passionate being that's having the most amazing life experience, and this is how I express myself. So I'm giving myself permission to do that as well.
I like it. And also I like that you talk about being passionate, because that also makes me think, so that's me going on my own tangent here, as so often time I find that I love the word, passion, being passionate and everything, and being it, embodying it. And it also reminds me of how so many times, and now I realize I have a very loud cat toy still in my office. Tangent number 2. They were all napping. Every cat, they were all napping. And of course, they're just like, oh, podcast recording time. Show is on. Not yours, please. Not yours. Oh, well. So back to passion, back to one of my own soapboxes is, I think they're special boxes because the cats don't steal them. It's, I like when we talk about passion, but I think that a slight pitfall in which we've fallen as maybe because of business, or the whole entrepreneurship and doing your own thing. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur. I love that, but it's oftentimes now it's like you have to have that one passion, that one and only passion that you need to follow. I'm not gonna pick one. I cannot pick one of my cats as my favorite. How am I going to pick one of my passions as my favorite? Please stop that bullshit.
Well, I think let's just bring out the soapbox stage and let's just be on the stage for today. So let's go there, because here's the thing. My observation is there's very, very few entrepreneurs left in this world. There is more and more self-employed people in this world. Self-employed people need the set of rules because they've basically either left corporate or have never been to corporate because they reject what corporate is. But they're not true entrepreneurs, because here's the thing. An entrepreneur needs no rules. An entrepreneur is that person that creates something completely original, that creates something that has not been done before. That is by definition what an entrepreneur is. So now we get all of the entrepreneurs being told, you must have one passion, you must have one niche market, you must have one brand, you must have one message, you must have one this, you must have one that. And what you are doing is you're taking a creative genius that just spends their life looking at life and go, what about if we do it like this? What if we do it? What if we create that? So A true entrepreneur is somebody who is constantly living in the world and looking at what can I create that does not exist at the moment. Now, you take that person and then you go, well, I want you to do that, but only in your field and only for these people and only in this way. How can we then call these people entrepreneurs? And again, maybe it is time for us to distinguish between corporate, self-employed, and entrepreneurship, and understand that self-employed people do extraordinarily well by give me the blueprint, tell me what to do, give me the steps to follow. They're really good in producing, but they don't create. Creativity comes from having the paper with all the colors and no rules, no lines, blank paper. What do we create? And the truth of the matter is very few people have the courage to do that, because your entrepreneurs, for the most part, look batshit crazy to the world.
That explains why I'm kind of following that route. And it's interesting. I like that you have this distinction, because that's something I've kind of been thinking about myself. And I think when in entrepreneurship, in creating something new, there's also the idea that this may change over time, like when you're multi-passionate and you have different things, like in this season right now in my life, I may want to work on that, but I always have the freedom eventually to go elsewhere. And this is also even while as I'm currently, building my own business. The thing is that one of the reasons I wanted to do that was bring in my different patients, my complex background into it, and see what can I do with all of that is going to help others, And I think that's one of the beauty also. Yeah, I was just like, there's going to be a cat bed at some point. Because I think that, there's a thing about working in a certain framework, like creating a framework of how you're going to help people, but also like, it's not just a single thing. It's like understanding that even, this is why I like talking about framework and systems rather than talking about like a formula or like even a blueprint now, because I like that when you talk about a framework or a system with how you're going to help others, no matter what you do, whether you're corporate, self-employed, whatever, whatever your situation, but like it's something where the type of things that can help people, but have this way that people then can use that to match and fit their own journey, their own season.
Yes. So I want to build on that. So two things. I want everybody to understand, I am not making anybody wrong, right? We need self-employed people. We need producers. We need creatives. We need people in corporate. I believe that there's design for everyone. So first of all, I'm not making, none is better than the other. I just want people to understand there is a difference, and we get to appreciate the differences. And if you are a true entrepreneur and you attempt to function as a self-employed person, you're going to be miserable and you are not going to have fun in the process. Step into a world where empowerment meets artistry. Welcome to the Unapologetic Woman Empowerment Magazine, a celebration of your strength, wisdom, and unapologetic journey through life. Immerse yourself in thought-provoking articles, powerful insights, and personal stories crafted for the conscious, soulful woman. Each page is a brushstroke of inspiration, a masterpiece of unapologetic living. Join the movement of empowered women, where your essence is honored, your voice is cherished, and your power is celebrated. Discover a magazine that celebrates you. Visit our website at unapologetic-woman.com to explore more. It's time to unleash your potential with the Unapologetic Woman Empowerment Magazine. I also want to build on the framework and enhance that by saying And for some of us, it's not even about the framework, it's about the space. Because I don't create frameworks. I used to. I no longer create frameworks for people, because what I came to understand is, where's the space for the true entrepreneurs, the true creatives, the true artists to come and play without a framework? I am the blank piece of paper. That is my role in this lifetime that I've come to understand. And I think it's important for us to start highlighting that as well, because it seems that people are being conditioned that they have to have a framework, they have to have something, which is great for most people. But the entrepreneurs, the creatives, the artists, the leaders, and that's why I talk about self-leadership, because even most leaders today are being told how to lead, and therefore inherently they are followers. There's so little sacred space for people to explore unjudged about all of the things. And I don't want people to be afraid of that either. There seems to be a fear of the blank paper. And so how about we bring enjoyment back? So it's really interesting, because the previous podcast I just recorded, we were talking about fear of dark and how we are encouraging, especially women, to embrace the darkness again, as the womb space is dark. And so that's where we do our best creations. And for me, this is that same. Like, we create in the dark, we create the framework from nothing, and then share that in the light with other people. So how delicious, as we are evolving, how we are evolving language as well, from blueprints to frameworks to space, emptiness, just that. And for people to start understanding that there's space and purpose for all of them in our world today.
I love that. And that actually makes me think of two different things, because I think that this blank page can be dual, when you're, I think for anybody, but I'm still thinking, in terms of entrepreneurship, in that case, is that you may have certain framework for certain people you got. I agree that not everybody, is going to work the same. And this is also where you can have the courage to be like, okay, I really want to work with that person, but I'm going to shift gears, whatever shape this may take, because you realize that there is a synergy between you, but that what work with most of your clients, most of the people you serve, is not the same. So I think this freedom, this courage, this creativity to just be like, I really want to work with that person. I think we can be good to each other, but have the courage to shift gears. And at the same time, this opportunity to, I like the idea of the blank page. I like me a blank page. I'm also a writer. So it's like, if you're talking to me about anything pages, I'm getting excited. Is also when we build our own life, in may choose this path less traveled altogether, we may have the opportunity to explore more blank pages, which may not be like the seasons our business is in, but maybe like, I am creating my own space, my own time to explore other projects that are dear to me and see where they go, embrace these blank pages. And I just want to touch on what you were, saying about that previous podcast you recorded, and like this idea of embracing the darkness, which is also very near and dear to my heart, because I think it goes back to, what we were saying about this realness, the kindness and everything. Like, be kind enough to ourselves to be like, hey, go have fun, go play, go even the path left travel, the darkness, your shadow, make friends with them. The one thing where now I am mindful is like this idea of this idea of the feminine and the womb only, something though that that I used to embrace, and to at this point it's kind of language that I kind of don't feel as comfortable with, because there is often an idea of being trans exclusive now, and this is something I want to be mindful of. It's like in a personal practice, if working with the womb as an imagery or whatever as a personal practice is something that I'm like, again, it's your personal preference and I completely honor that. But if I'm going to talk about it and exploring the darkness, it's a type of language I personally do not use at this point, because I want to be mindful of, trans and non-binary femme individuals, and that you are still welcome here. You are still welcome into the feminine darkness, no matter the body you were born with.
And so when we talk about masculine and feminine, I'm not talking about man and woman, right? So there's a huge distinction. Masculine and feminine is energies that we are referring to. Man and woman is sex, is gender. So for me, those are two very clear distinctions within myself. I'm also going to say this. For the longest time, I started tripping myself up in my attempt to be respectful of everybody's individual choices, to the point where I eventually sat quiet and I thought, oh my God, no matter what I say, I offend somebody somewhere. Because I'm either not keeping up with the language, and I'm not just talking about transgender or those, even with race. I'm from South Africa. I'm constantly in trouble about race. I'm constantly in trouble about my non-political views. I'm always in trouble in society because I'm not keeping up with society's preferences. And I had to come to a point of going, oh, okay, no. I need to say things the way that I say them, because if I don't, then I keep quiet because I get confused, and trust that it will be received from the love that it comes from. But here's the thing, no matter what I say, some people get it and some people don't. Some people receive it and some people reject it. So I had to start going, I can't watch my words all the time anymore, because then I become numb, I become dumb, I become quiet. So when I talk about the womb even, it is the feminine energy for me of where we create, right? And again, we need both masculine and feminine energies in creation, even from a biological perspective. We need a sperm cell and the egg to come together. Masculine, feminine come together to form the creation. But the womb space that I think I'm referring to is the incubation period of creation. So the incubation period of creation is in darkness. And it's sacred for me. And I think that our society that we are experiencing right now is removing sacredness from a lot of things, even conversation. And so everybody wants to touch the belly. Everybody wants to know what's inside the belly. What's the sex of the baby? What is this? And I'm using this, not literally, people. I'm using this figuratively, right? I think that when we start understanding that there is a sacredness in the incubation of our creations, in the darkness, what I call the womb, then we also have a responsibility as the creator to safeguard what is sacred to us. I feel like on the one hand, we are constantly being told we have to share everything. We have to share our thoughts. We have to share what we're working on. We have to share what we're going on in our journey. Oh my God. When people are in personal development, they must share their experience. And it's removed the sacredness of something that's deeply personal. It's called personal development for a reason. Personal
Yes, it's not public development.
For a reason. Why we are asking for testimonials. And at one stage, I was convinced to ask people, and they would give testimonials and would go, that's not really what we did. Because what we did together was so deeply personal. I would never expect somebody to talk publicly about it. I invite sacredness back into our lives. The sacredness of our personal development, the sacredness of our personal creations, the sacredness of our personal eating. When we eat, is it sacred? Is it a sacred ritual for us to nourish our bodies? Or are we just shoving stuff into our mouth? But when we bring sacredness back into life, everything changes.
And there can be sacredness in every little things, because often I completely agree that the sacredness has been removed from so many things, and absolutely agree with that. And there's this idea, I think, that sacredness has to be this big, extravaganza ritual or really things set in stone. And we're going back, to this idea of let's play, let's embrace, everything we want to. And you can find the sacred in tiny moments, and just even including being with yourself, and this, wherever it might be as mundane, or just going in. If you're in public transportation, it doesn't even have to be that whole shebang of you need to go walk in nature and only then are you going to embrace the sacred. I mean, if you want and can go in nature, please by any means do so, but it's always the if, do this one thing or do these three things in this order. And the sacredness is everywhere. We choose it, to see it, to smell it, to hear it, to be it. And that's including like what you were saying about, this incubation period. And like there's such a special energy to be working on something for yourself. You don't know where it's going to go. You don't even know if you'll share it with anybody, but just this sheer joy, this sheer coming alive. For me, that's really a coming alive that is sacred, that is in that space. And no matter what comes from it, it's also like, it's the process. It's that moment when you're working on it and you're just like, oh, this is amazing, whatever. Even if 2 days later, you're just like, what was I thinking? But in that moment, it's everything coming together. It's this excitement, this joy that, oh, I'm cooking something brand new, even if it has nothing to do with cooking.
Yes, it's about experiencing life again, right? It's
yes.
about being present in the experience of life.
Yes.
You could be in the bathroom and have a sacred poop, because it would be the experience of the poop instead of just, having to do it in public because there's just nothing sacred anymore. I think it's about honoring myself as worthy of sacredness, honoring myself as worthy of a good life, of personal preference, of this moment. I'm worthy of this moment. And so this moment gets to be sacred. It's so interesting. I was driving with my son once, and I'm sure I've told the story on the podcast before because it was so profound. And it was back in my social media days. And there was a peacock next to the road in the middle of nowhere. This astounding, beautiful peacock. And we were slowing down, and I said to him, oh my God, we should stop and take a photo so we could share it on Facebook and Instagram so people can see this. And my son looked at me and he said, or maybe the peacock is just here for us, Mom. And I was like, wow, that hit me hard. I had become so entrenched in the social media world of show and tell that I had kept nothing. I no longer felt that life were creating delicious, delightful moments just for me. I thought that everything that I experienced, everything that I learned, everything that I had to share with other people, because I needed to be in service to everybody else. I needed to be of value to everybody else. And in order for me to do that, everything had to be shared. And when my son said to me, maybe it's here just for us, I thought, wow, that's it. Like, the universe conspired so many things to have the exact timing right for us to be there at that moment, and this is a road I've driven for 8 years.
Oh,
And I've
wow. Yeah. I
never,
mean, in itself, it was crazy, but that on top, yeah.
never seen that peacock before and never saw it again in 8 years. The amount of little synchronistic events that had to take place for us to converge in that moment of time. And the universe did that just for me, for my delight.
Love this.
Doesn't
I
that
love
change
this.
everything?
Yeah. And that also, like, because I agree. I mean, I think at some point, we all got, many of us at least got, caught up in the social media trap. And that this reminds me, and it's conversation that I think we are having more and more these days, which is a really good thing, is that we always talk about, being authentic and, being vulnerable, including in how we show up, with others, whether it's in person, online, you name it. But the missing component I find in this conversation often, a little less now, is that authenticity and vulnerability doesn't mean bearing everything. It does not remove privacy for what you want to keep to yourself. You have this boundary, you have this right to be like, I'm going to show up as myself and share about XYZ experience, but I don't need to share the whole alphabet. There are moments that are still just for us.
And I continue to challenge the whole vulnerability movement. And I know that it's huge in our world at the moment. It doesn't resonate for me personally. I do not believe in the vulnerability movement. When we look at what vulnerable is, it's a moment of weakness in which we need the protection of another, which I feel still comes from fear consciousness. Why do we have to be vulnerable? Why can we not just be real? And in the moments when we are feeling vulnerable, I believe that it's sacred for us to go and protect ourselves in private. The whole vulnerability in public movement for me is, there's a lot of things that I listen to these days and I just don't resonate with it anymore. I don't resonate with feel the fear and do it anyway. I don't resonate. We all have to live outside of our comfort zones. I don't resonate with anything that is promoting fear in people anymore, because I know that there's a different way. The fact of the matter is, fear is going to be the basis of life, at least for a few more generations to come, because we're only now starting to see how this constant living in fear is creating within consciousness, within humanity, a desire to not live from fear, right? A desire to live unapologetically, with ease and flow and fun, instead of setting goals that make me want to vomit. Again, not making it right. If that is still what is good for you and what's fun for you, please go for it. It stopped being fun for me because I realized I didn't want to live in fear anymore. I wanted to find...
there's enough of that running around.
Right? And so for me, even vulnerability is still coming from a space of fear. What if we just got to be real? What if we just get to be real and not be afraid of being real? But again, we're human. We're having a human experience. And so there are moments when you feel like crap, when you are scared, when you do feel, oh no, not ready.
Can I be a blanket burrito for a few more hours or days?
Exactly. And then I have my person, right? I have my 3 a.m. friends, my Amy, and I kind of go, it's cool. Amy won't judge me. Amy won't mollycoddle me. Amy is my person. And that gets to be sacred for me. And then I don't have to be vulnerable with everybody else. But that's just me. Off my soapbox again, because we're almost at the end of the conversation, and I have not asked the question of all questions that I open every podcast with, because
oops,
this has been so much fun. So let me gather myself and just be prim and proper again, and say, Natasha, what does it mean to you to be an unapologetic woman?
I'm going to, the first immediate reaction is fuck it to socio-cultural expectations. That's the immediate answer. And I say that really like that's from a place of weird joy now, I would say. But it's like it's being embracing, and since you ask it at the end of I'm going to go back to this embracing of our own preference and standing up for myself and being able to carve the life that brings me joy, that is bringing my soul alive. And really that's why I say life, because for me life is the personal, the professional, the spiritual, everything's come together. I mean, everything is interdependent, and that's where I think being an unapologetic woman means for me. And I will have to say that every time I hear Unapologetic, I'm going to have the song Unapologetic by Hailstorm playing in the back of my brain, which Hailstorm is one of my favorite bands, and they have a song called Unapologetic. So it's just like, yeah.
I love that. I love that. And how amazing when we give ourselves permission to live our own personal preference, and we no longer need anybody else's approval or applause or agreements, right? Mm-hmm. No more approval, applause, or agreements, because quite frankly, it's my personal preference that I get to create my life experience. And then of course it always come back, and you don't need to be a dick. Like, you don't need to be a dick about it.
Exactly. Just like, it's like you're carving your own space. You don't have to, it's your own space. Like, it's your own life. It's you. If it's not of somebody else's cup of tea, that's fine. We don't even want our partner or partners or whatever to be exactly, we don't want clones, no matter the relationship, we don't want clones, or at least, yeah, that's my view. I don't want clones personally.
Exactly. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who do want clones, and for them I say, wonderful. I hope that you create your life experience of clones, and that you really find joy in it. I think that that's maybe what is missing, what I see in the world for so many people. They have so many passions and agendas, but they're not living in joy. It's not like everything that I get on my little soap rant about. It all brings me joy. I'm living such a joyful life, and so therefore I can kind of go, yeah, but this is what brings me joy, and be really unapologetic about it. I just wish more people can live in joy. That's my wish for society, is to live in joy. And what I've observed is that when we do live in joy, we don't harm others, because joy is a frequency. And when you live on the frequency of love, when you live on the frequency of joy, when you live on the frequency of life, really is a gift. Every single day is a birthday. Every single day is worth of celebration. You can't live on that frequency and then judge or harm or break down others, because it's a mismatch of frequency. And the sad thing is, the lowest frequency always wins. The lowest frequency of your thoughts is the frequency that you are vibrating on. And so if we can just start understanding that, I think we would live in a very different world. What do you take an unapologetic stance for in life?
That's another good question. And I should have seen this one coming as well, because I've listened to some other episodes of your podcast. It's going to come across as just big values, but it's like honesty, respect, inclusiveness. That's and I'm also a firm believer in the power of art, no matter in creativity, no matter what shape. You don't have to be Leonardo da Vinci, just the sheer act of creating. And maybe, even if being your way of being creative and artistic is decorate your home or, doodle or anything, it's just like, I think there is a very such power, joy, and connection to have that happen through art and creativity.
Beautiful. Thank you. So for the ladies who are listening, how do they connect with you? Where's the best place to connect with you? And more importantly, who will be fun for you to connect with?
let's be basic in this say, but it's not basic. Say over unapologetic women, because I absolutely we need more of us. We need more of us coming around. It's like really believe about that. And the best place to connect with me is on LinkedIn, because that's my current happy place, and where I've got lucky to meet so many amazing women. I mean, that's how I discovered you, thanks to Sally. So because I saw Sally's post about her appearance on your podcast, I was like, oh, I need to go check it out. And then, oh, I need to meet Elle. So yeah, LinkedIn is currently the best place where to find me.
Beautiful. And of course, we'll put all the links in the description today as well of how to reach Natacha, either on LinkedIn. I'm sure her email address will be in there as well. And what I will say to our listeners is, if you do have the amazing opportunity to meet Natacha and have a conversation with her, is go into the conversation with an open mind. What you see is not all that you get from this woman. Like, when you allow yourself to open the wrapper and be delighted by the constant contradiction, like, do not be, all I'm like, what you see is not all you get, is what I'm going to say, and enjoy that. I think yes.
This brings me so much glee and joy, and slight cackle inwardly.
Oh my God, this conversation has been so much fun. Thank you for playing unapologetically. And I think that we have touched on a lot of topics that could be really sensitive to our listeners. And I want to say, always, we take responsibility for our own personal happiness and well-being. If our conversation has triggered you, you've got choices. You could either just kind of like stop listening to the conversation, move on. You kind of just, it was what it was. Or maybe it was a trigger that you want to lean into and explore for yourself. Why is this triggering me? Like, what is lying underneath all of this? I always see my triggers as an opportunity for curiosity and introspection. And I find that the more I lean into my triggers, the fewer triggers I have, because quite frankly, I discover the underlying belief that is creating the trigger. Let's not live in a triggerless world. I think that would be really boring. But I also want people to take responsibility for their triggers. We're all mature women, hopefully, that are listening to this show. Otherwise, you would probably really struggle with the show. Yes. And I personally love having difference of opinions, difference of beliefs, difference of experience to my guests. That's what makes this interesting for me. So, Natacha, darling, thank you so much. To our listeners. Oh, what have you taken away from this? I mean, hot damn, we've gone all over the show, as usual. What is the big thing for you that you want to bring to the conversation? Let's continue the conversation in the comments. This is the starter. What will be the main? Until next week, have a sensational day, and always remember, we get to live our legacies unleashed, unlimited, and unapologetic. Cheers. Thank you for joining us on another empowering episode of the Unapologetic Woman Podcast. We hope you found this conversation as inspiring as we did. Remember, embracing your strength and authenticity is a journey worth taking, and we're thrilled to be part of it with you. If you've enjoyed our discussions and found value in the stories we share, we have a favor to ask. Your support means the world to us, and there are a couple of simple ways you can make a big difference. First, take a moment to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your words have the power to reach other incredible women like you who are seeking upliftment and insight. By leaving a review, you're helping us create a ripple effect of empowerment that extends far beyond these virtual airwaves. Second, think of the remarkable women in your life who would resonate with our message. Share this podcast with them, whether it's a friend, a family member, a colleague, or even a fellow pioneer you've connected with. Together, we can create a community of unapologetic women who uplift, support, and inspire each other. Stay connected with us on social media at The Unapologetic Woman for updates, behind the scenes moments, and engaging conversations. We love hearing from you and building this vibrant community together. As we wrap up this episode, remember that your journey matters, your voice is vital, and your impact is immeasurable. Let's continue rewriting the narrative and embracing our unapologetic selves, one episode at a time. Thank you for being part of the Unapologetic Woman movement. Until next time, stay true to yourself, stay unapologetic, and keep dancing to your own tune.